Okay guys, so now it's time to do the low poly model. So I'll start from the frame and make sure it's one polygroup and export it. Alright, now let's create new scene. This one's going to be clean and import our guy in here. And here it is. Okay, so now let's do some organization. First of all, in this scene, I'm going to create the retopology. So I want to create couple materials that will indicate my high poly and low poly model. So create this material and name it high material, and I'll change the color to this reddish. Okay, and create another material, call it low matte, and the color will be default. Okay, so when you export stuff in Maya, the high poly model, first thing you want to do is to soften edges on like the whole mesh, because right now if I apply material high right there, and you can see right there that there are like you can see the edges, because ZBrush does not support soft edges, and you need to manually adjust this in Maya. So just select the object, and I have it right here. Click on soft edges. You can find this at mesh display, soft edges. You can see the mesh turns the color of the edges. That means that it's completed. Now you can see here it's nice and smooth. Okay, so I will turn off the grid, and right now I want to group this object right here, and Control G to group the object and call it high poly. Okay, now like I want to name this high poly object, which is going to be H for handgun 01 high, like this. The like prefix high is really important here, or a suffix, excuse me. Anyway, like the word high in the end, it's really important, because when I'm going to export this part into Marmoset, Marmoset will automatically adjust all of your meshes according to the this indication over here. So here it is. And one thing I want to do more is to create a new layer. Select the group, not the mesh, but the group, and create a new layer with selection, and set it to reference like this. So now you cannot select this mesh. You can select it right here, but in the viewport you can't do that. It's also really handy. So now let's save the scene. Let's call it scene. I usually call it retop for retopology. All right. So now let's drop the low poly meshes here and start doing our mesh. So let's go back into ZBrush, select the Boolean scene, and let's select the frame folder right here and Control arrow up to the very beginning. And now what I also would like to do is to hide everything and then unhide this folder. And now open the folder and let's export these guys one by one. So export this one, import. Okay, so at this point, normally, if I had another object, I would actually not do anything else. I would just go one by one of these things and just cut it in Maya. And that's why I was talking about like considering your poly count on the high poly stage, because at this point right here, obviously this amount of edges is not enough for this like curvy shape. And I could do this, but it's much harder for this like soft and curved shape to be adjusted with a big amount of polygons and edges and vertices. It's much easier to be edited when it has that little amount of poly. So right now I need to see which parts require more polygons for now, because as you can see here, when I select this mesh, the only thing that actually is intact is this grip and the back and the front grip part and like this, like the butt part here. Everything else on the front is going to be cutted or added and deformed. It doesn't matter. But right now I need to add more polygons on here. So in order to make it smoother and be more correspondent to the high poly model. So let's select faces and delete this bottom cap right now for easier controlling. And let's just turn on the symmetry because the grip part is symmetrical. And let's start adding more edges just right here by beveling. Just double checking. Okay, so hit bevel. Okay, as you can see, I cannot do it more because it hits some restrictions. So over here at this point, so I'll Control Z, deselect these guys, and hit another bevel. Now it's a bit wider. Still not perfect. You can actually manually type in the number you need, but it can cause some artifacts at this point. Or there's like even a bit more lazy way to do this. Let's Control Z. I actually can drop a subdivision, one subdivision for this object. It's a mesh, smooth, apply, and we'll see how it's going to look like. Well, right now I need to pick like one method that I would like to choose between either growing edges on my own or applying a smooth and deleting unneeded edges right now. So I guess I'll do with deleting unneeded edges right now, because again, this part doesn't really matter because it's all going to be edited and deleted, but this part should be really smooth, and right now it's quite not bad. But the only thing is that I think it's too much over here. And okay, so let's isolate this guy and just double check it. Okay, again, let's apply material, low, and let's do it, let's soften all the edges, and just let's check it. So actually right here, I think it's not enough of the polys right there, because you can see the edginess over there. Well, okay, so I guess I'll go with this for now. I'll complete the whole model and then I will optimize this part, because it's really hard to judge it right now. So let's go with this for now, and let's go back in ZBrush. And right now what I'm going to do is just select every single tool that is cutting and import it in Maya and apply booleans, but in Maya. So let's go with this guy. And before I apply booleans, I tend to delete the supporting edges right there, because they are not needed anymore. So delete that. Okay, select the mesh. Now you can see why I did this layer. So the high poly is still there, but I can click on this and I'll be sure that I'm selecting the low poly. Also, I'm deleting the history all the time. Now let's select this and this, mesh, booleans, difference, and something went wrong. What is that? On one side it went okay, but on the other, what the hell is that? That's the thing with booleans in Maya. They can be problematic sometimes. And right, I think it's because of this thing has a hole. Let's check it. No, mesh difference, still no. Okay, so at this point I can select only one side of this object right here and delete this. Turn off the symmetry right there. Hit delete. Now I have only the half of my object. Right here you can see it's not perfectly aligned, so select all the edges in the middle, scale them like this, and just align and snap them to the grid right there. Now it's perfectly centered. Now let's try this thing again. Now it worked, because the other side had some issues. I don't know which, but it had some. Make sure every time you apply a Boolean operation on this thing, delete history every time after that, because if you don't do this, at some points the whole mesh can crush, and that will be really bad. Okay, so right now let's examine and check if this mesh is completely symmetrical. If it is, it's even better and easier. Yeah, it is completely symmetrical except for this cutout right here. I can do this at the very end. But right now I can do all of those things only with one side. And right there, it's not symmetrical. Okay, so I'll keep in mind that. And let's go further. And it's really important to go in the same order as in ZBrush, because those cutting tools can be dependent on those tools that are adding before those, so make sure you go like in the order. So let's export this guy. Right here. Mesh, union. And something went wrong again. Come on. What is wrong with you? Okay, now it's definitely because we have a half. So what I'll have to, what is this? One, that's not correct. Delete this guy and extrude, snap it to this point. Okay. Have to manually adjust some of those parts. Now, yep, like this. As you can see right now, the mesh looks like a mess. That is okay, because I'll edit it later and it will have a nice look. So I moved the pivot point to the center of the coordinates. Now Control D and scale it, -1. Now let's merge those guys together and weld the points right there and fill this hole over there right now. Now I hope this gonna work correctly. And one more thing before that, turn off the high poly guy here. I want to increase the edges right there, like this, over here, and same over here, so that this part will be really smooth on the low poly, like that. Yeah, now we'll look good. Now select these guys and union. You can see it worked. Clear the history, apply material. Still looks like a mess, that's okay. Now let's go further. Am I using this one? No, I do not. Right, those were the temporary meshes. I had to delete those, but okay, so now let's export this big guy. Import. Here it is. This is going to be messy because of this parts over here, but I have no other choice. And I'm just checking what can be deleted. These guys, I don't need those. Those are supporting edges. You can, or you can leave it for later, this like cleanup part of the cutting meshes, because obviously it will translate the topology on your mesh. So you can take some time and do the cleanup of the cutting edge, of the cutting mesh, excuse me. So getting rid of those triangles there, right, like this, and like this. This part is not important. Whoops. This part is just a supporting edge. Well, those guys over there. Nope. Nope. Okay, just leave it like there. Like this. Okay, so I have this curved part over here. I want to make it more smooth. So delete this guy. Right now I'm going to bevel it. Right there. Just trying to make sure that the distance between the edges is quite the same. Unlike here, you can actually manually adjust that part. It is okay. I'm just going to double check it if it's like corresponding to the high poly. Now let's fix this part over here, which looks weird. Like so. Trying to be careful right here because welding the wrong vertex to the wrong, like another one, you can mess with the surfaces and they're not going to be perfectly flat as they are right now. Manually adjust this part over here. Like so. Okay, now without like wireframe, you can see like this part, it's quite good looking. Okay, so now select this guy, and mesh difference, and let's see the result. Well, it's actually looking not bad, at least this part over here. The rest is still a mess, but it's okay. I will fix that in later. Looking good. So let's go on with this fellow right here. Actually, like doing this kind of frame is the hardest part because as you can see, it's not perfectly like it will be much easier with the slide part because there will be no curved objects and kind of stuff like that. Okay, so I can see one problem over here because I had this part creased. I had just to delete the cap, but I did not. So what I'm going to do now is just hide this guy and try to align the mesh perfectly straight out there. So what I'm going to do is just trying to select this cap over here, not this one. And right there, deselect everything that is not needed and just scale it like so. So it will be perfectly straight. Now try to align it with the end cap right there. Like so. Well, yeah. It would be much better if I could do this from the very beginning, but I forgot. That's okay. I will actually try to snap it. Yeah, it snapped. You can see like this blurry thing going on there. Means that it is snapped. Another thing that I would like to do is to align. You can see this thing goes down just a bit. I wanted to fix some of the topology right there and set the height of this part straight. So right now I'm just target welding. I have my hotkey for target weld. It's on X. Just a small part from my 3ds Max past. It's not by default in Maya, just my personal preference. Okay, so now let's select this top row over here and snap it on the height. Like so. Let's go to the side view, and yeah, now we're perfectly straight. That's good. And for better understanding, let's go and harden this edge like this. You can see the history on here. Just delete it and save the scene. And at this point I'm trying to keep my outliner clean, so you have this kind of group. Just delete it, unhide this last fellow right there, and let's do the same thing with him. Let's delete those supporting edges. I don't need, whoops, these are not supporting edges. You can see when I delete this one, something happens, so I keep it. Okay, and now I want to, I don't need these. No, I'll keep it. It turns topology into mess. Okay, I'll just bevel this part like so. No, that's too much. 0.5 and 3. Yeah, that's looking much better. And manually adjust some of those guys right there, so that this object creates a nice curve. And those guys inside, because they are affecting the main mesh, like this, just arranging those so that they could look more like smooth. Okay, this looks fine. Select mesh difference, delete history, and just double check it. Okay, this looks somewhat okay. I'll fix this later. Right, I also don't like this part over here. That's because of I had no cap right there. So select these vertices and scale them along the axes like this, and snap them to this one like so. Yeah, now we're straight right there. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, let's go on. Select the next guy. This one's going to be tricky. Create some really weird form, and it's really low poly. This one's going to be really bad. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that if I apply the Boolean mesh on this one right now, it's not going to do a thing. So what I would like to do instead is to apply one subdivision and use it like that. For this, I will duplicate this mesh, Shift D, and just drop one subdivision. I did this because I want to maintain my creases. And delete. Now it looks somewhat there. Let's try it out. Export this guy. Yep. And delete this mesh. I don't need it in this scene. Delete this one. Import. Yeah, this looks a bit more promising. Difference. And well, yeah, this will require a lot of edits, but I think it did its job, so I'll keep it. Delete history, apply material. Again, this case right now and all the mess you can see here, this is like the toughest part of the whole mesh, and I promise you, like, the rest parts will be really much easier. This one is like the toughest one. So let's go on. This one is going on top. So export it. Mesh union. Okay, and delete history immediately. Let's go further. These are our bevels. Import. Difference, and it worked. This looks nice, actually. Really does. Let's go next. Same thing here. Nothing special. Okay, so now it's time for this trigger guard. Import, and let's double check this one because it's obviously too low poly. I want to make it much more smooth. So the obvious problem here is this, like, edge in the middle. Can add some serious amount of additional edges, right, like somewhat like this. This looks nice. I can even add more, but I want to keep the middle edge right there, so I'll go with 6, like so. And now I need to edit the side view because you can turn on the transparency and see where it's not on the right place. So right now I'm turning off the symmetry and snapping, and now just manually adjust those things better. Like so. Obviously we need more geometry in here. Okay, same thing here. I need more here for better transition. This one goes lower. Okay. This is actually a supporting edge right there. I don't need it. As well as here. Now go back into vertex mode and let's do some more adjustments. Right there. Just adding more geometry, so it's going to look better. I don't quite like this part of it there. Oh, I'm messing something. Okay, I'll keep it like this for now. Right there. That's too far. We can actually also just select the edges and bevel. Like so. Okay, this looks somewhat okay. I don't like the way this part looks. Like it goes inward. This goes outward and this goes inward. This is weird. I guess I'll have to go manually with this. Like so. And here as well. Make sure your symmetry is turned on so that this thing affects both sides. Okay, now let's bevel this part. Like so, and this one as well. Move the vertices so that the distance between each segment is going to be pretty much the same. It's kind of important so that we use every vertex in its full potential, so that every edge will have its own purpose. It's kind of bad when you have like too much edges on one place, like stacked too close together, and at some other place you're just missing them. That's not good. So make sure you distribute those all evenly and they all make its own purpose. Like this. Okay. Let's go back into this, and it's really useful to just check your model at distance without wireframe and making sure that these lines are smooth and you cannot see the blocky parts. I can see the blocky part here. I'll bevel this part like this. Okay. So now let's attach those guys together. Like so. We're getting close. Now for this guy. Okay, union, low. Okay, now this cutout here for magazine release button. I can bet there's some supporting edges. Yeah, this one. No, none of those are there. Okay, and yeah, it's not rounded. Okay, so mesh difference. Yep, looks good. Let's go on. Why is there a button? All right, turn that off. And that's a play, yeah. So at this point, you also need to figure out which part you want to be baked into the normal map and which part you want to make modeled. Like, as you can see, the next object is cutting this hole right there, and I'm not going to model this hole right here because the button sticks out, and the only thing that we'll see there is just like this small edge, and it'll be totally fine is if I bake this part over here, unlike these holes right here, because these guys I am going to model. And this part is really important because right now you are like checking which part is going to be modeled and which one is baked. And the easy way to figure this out is just try to align your mesh the way it's going to be looked in the first person view, like for example like this. And every part that you see here that is visible right there, you should do this modeled out. So I could like bake in those pins, but they will be looking much better if I bake them, not bake, just model them, and it will make a huge difference. And I'll show you that because at this side I think I'm going to bake these guys right there, but for this side I'm going to model it, and there will be a huge difference. And why I use this side, because this is a like game view side. The gun is usually is held in right hand, and this side you will see. I'm not going to model this thing because the button will stick out, but the pins are going just slightly inside, and this surface is angled, so it'll be much better to model those things out. And it's like modern video game standards, they support that kind of amount of vertices, tree counts, and it's totally fine. So, and it's going to look really good. So let's go on. I'm skipping this guy over here. I'm doing this thing. Got some supporting edges right there. And messed topology right there with those triangles. Snap these guys over here and just weld it. Yeah, okay, now let's do the thing. Yeah, also we have also supporting guys right there. Yeah, this is how it. Another thing, you have this like hardened edges right there. For better like understanding the smoothness of this object, you can go into mesh display and soften hardened edges automatically, and most of the times it does it correctly, and you can see like there's not enough geometry there. I would like to bevel this part once at least, like this. Yeah, now it looks better. Still kind of a bit blocky, but this part of the gun is not going to be seen that much, so it's okay to do it like this. Difference. Okay. So let's go to the bottom part. Make sure you have this hole filled. Difference. Here we go. You can see that the form is getting there. Now for these guys. And you can see that this actually goes pretty fast. I'm just dropping the same meshes over there from ZBrush into Maya, and it's quite easy and fast. Make sure deleting history all the time. Let's go on. Okay, let's cut this big fellow here. Import. Hold on. I'm pretty sure we have supporting edges. Yep, right there. It's easier not to delete those, but just target weld. Right there. Control Z. Come on. Right there. Doing this thing at this point is just makes it easier in the future. So it's not necessary to do it right now, but just cutting at least some part of work that I will have to do. Okay, this is not actually a supporting edge. This actually like does something to geometry and to the main shape, to the silhouette. So let's keep it. This guy is actually supporting. Okay. Yeah, now we're okay. Now we're good. Now let's do the difference. Turn off the symmetry. Turn off. Delete history. Every time you do this, believe me, this is really important. Okay, now it's time for these guys. Okay, I want to double check the high poly model and see if I really need to bake those guys in or not. Well, this thing actually changes. Well, when you disassemble the gun, and it has that deepness over there, so I'll model it. The only question is for these guys, do I want to bake them in or model them out? Because this guy is definitely going to be modeled because it's like really curvy shape, and it's not going to look good when this surface is flat. So the only question is for these guys and this one little guy over there. And I guess I'll bake this one, but I think not these guys. These guys are going to be modeled as well. Okay, so let's go back, make sure it's one polygroup, and export it. We have these guys, select them, mesh, difference. I will fix this guy later. Right now it looks good. Okay, let's go on. And this guy. Difference. We're getting close to an end. Difference. Okay, this guy over here. Well, I'm actually going to keep it this guy for now. I'll tell you why just a bit later. And this one last guy here. Whoops. Import. Delete this edge. Now, like this. Okay. And now as I said, I'm going to keep this guy for now like this. And what I want to do is just to export this guy just one more time. Import right there. I'll keep those guys together for now. And this shape you can see here, we applied all of the meshes we had. And right now the main work to be done is to clean this mess up and make sure we don't have n-gons and all that kind of stuff. And right now this model is actually symmetrical. So what I'm going to do now, just to double check that all of this is going to look properly, I'm going to delete the half of this model. Because yeah, of course I can use symmetry right here, but oftentimes this thing is not 100% reliable. It can mess things up just a bit, so like the best way is just to delete the half of the model. And before that, I need to make sure that I have the edges all around it straight in the middle. So what I'm going to do now is just go all the way around the model, connect those parts. You can see it turned green because the history was not deleted and the material broke. That's okay, just delete the history and apply new material. Now connect, what was that? Yeah, I selected too much. Connect these guys over there. Make sure you have a straight line just in the middle of your whole mesh. This is really important. So same thing right here, connect this. It's not connecting because we have an extra edge there, and I'm going to fix that just by doing what I have here is just like two vertices really close to each other. So, and okay, have this face right there, and I think I deleted, yeah, I deleted it. So I delete this again, select the whole connect it, delete, connect those guys. Another way to do this, you can select multi-cut tool, select this, hit Control Shift, and you can see it creates a 90 degrees angle right there. Just release it, and now you can connect again. Okay. Now let's follow this line further, make sure we have this line all the way. I need it also here. Connect. Delete history. And connect. Okay. Messed a bit. Right there. You can just connect those and snap them to the middle part. That's okay. So grid topology is most of the times the most boring part, but actually also the most important, one of the most important ones. So the optimization of your model depends on this process. So you have to be really cautious and paying attention to the details. You can see some crazy shit happening right there. Zoom in really close. Try, no. Come on, guys. Give me that reach. Like this. Yeah. Yeah. Now connect. Now snap to the center. I need this line to be perfectly centered. Yep. Okay, let's go on. Connect. Right there. Okay, so we have the straight line over here, and same thing should be done for the back part. Same thing here, go weld. Okay, so connect these guys. All right, select this one and this one. Okay, almost done. We're almost there. Okay, right there. I think we're done. So let's go to the top view, isolate this guy, and symmetry is turned off, and select the faces right there. Make sure we selected all the needed faces, nothing extra, nothing like more than we don't need. Okay, now delete it, and I can see we have still some problems. I deleted more over here. That's okay, that's no problem. And also I was not connecting like the inside of those holes, but that's totally fine as well. That's okay. So I'm going to delete these guys and weld together those fellows right there, and extrude this guy and bridge. Same thing here. Bridge. Yeah, we're good. Okay, yeah, this looks nice. So now I have one half of the grip. Delete the history, Control S for saving the scene, and right now I'm going to go from vertex to vertex and clean everything up so that it will look nice and clean without n-gons. We have only polygons and triangles, nothing more. Everything is going to be connected and looking nice. So I tend to start from one part and go like all the way to another part. So let's start from this part right here. Guess I'm not going to be talking too much at this point, so you can see I'm welding all those vertices that don't make any difference in terms of geometry and the main silhouette. And also I'm avoiding concave polygons. Somehow I cannot connect these guys. Why? Yeah, I cannot, because this is a bad thing about Maya. Sometimes you just can't do the operation you want it to do. And you can see here, right, I can see now. I'm double clicking. You can see it has the long edge on top of those small edges, and this part is really tricky. Yeah, you can see that this is kind of bad. So in order to clean this, what I'm going to do is select this vertex over there and over here, as well as here, and now I'm going to fill this hole and now connect right there. Now it's gonna work. Yep. Now just weld. Okay. So this crazy looking part. Come on. And as more information stores on the history of this object, the slower target weld and multi-cut is going to work, which is kind of bad. So every once in a while, just go back into object mode and delete the history. Alt-Shift-D. And sometimes you should double check the high poly model and make sure you do everything correct. I don't need this thing here. Okay, so we have this weird looking part right there. Let's check how it looks on the high poly. So I don't need this edge here. Like this. See this artifact right here? I can bet we have some, yeah, we have two vertices over here. And if you weld those together, yeah, the thing disappears right there. Again, just double check all the things. Oh, keep those vertices that create the silhouette, because those vertices were designed in the high poly stage and with those cutting tools that you did. So all the rest can be target welded because they are not necessary. They're not making any silhouette changes. Try to avoid really thin triangles as much as possible. And this messy thing. So right now I'm just optimizing the mesh as much as possible. Trying to retain the silhouette with the least amount of triangles. I don't like this part here. Also, once in a while, you can apply soft and hardened edges just by default. This is not the case. It did worse. Okay, so in order to manually fix like these issues you can see here, because right now, after I'm done with the cleanup, I'm also going to set up my soft and hard edges. At this point, it's really important. So in order to see those like a bit easily, just shift and right click, hold soft and hardened edges and toggle soft edge display, and now you can see every line that is dotted, it's soft edge, and the hard edge is just straight line. So you can see right there we have a soft edge. Yep, now it looks good. At this point, I'm also fixing the hard edges and soft edges. This is another topic to talk about, and I think I will cover it just a bit later, but just in general terms, the more soft edges you have, the better. Like, the ideal mesh for baking is when you don't have any hard edge at all. But obviously it's not possible in most cases because the shading is going to look bad. And I am going to talk about shading just a bit later and what it is and why it should look good. But for now, I'm trying to maintain as much soft edges as possible, and I'm putting hard edges on those parts that are logically hard on our object, like where you can see the seam on the object. I try to keep that part with the hard edge. Okay, this place here is really messy. Whoa. Try to make the flow smoother. I don't need that really thing. I don't need these guys at all, as well as these. I will need some editing right here. The surface is not flat enough, curved enough. That is a subject for editing. Okay, so definitely need some part edited here as well.